and policy reforms that are necessary to sing that transition? Karibu.
Thank you, Austin. My panelists. Good morning, everyone. As introduced, my name is Charles, and I'm looking after SME banking at Stanbic. Been doing that for a couple of years now. Been in the finance industry for over 10 years, I'd say. So, yeah, we've done some of stuff very good, and there's a lot of room for improvement, and I'll mention a few. So, for instance, if you look at the past 3-5 years, I've seen banks, including ourselves, we've come up with sort of products that are created for startup, early stage businesses. For instance, 2 years ago, we went to the regulator to ask for permission to set up accounts for business that are not fully compliant. And this is one of the challenges that startups are facing. Because being compliant, being fully compliant, having all the governance documents in place is quite a problem. So we got that approval, and now we're able to sort of serve these pre-revenue startups. So I think that's a plus. And of course, if you look at most of the organizational financial organizations, we have desk or department that are fully dedicated for partnerships, especially with fintech and startups. I think that's also a plus. And another thing is the setup of initiative, the likes of Imbeju, Stanbic. We have business incubator space where we train, we sort of try and make startups to be investor ready. So governance, financial setup, all that sort of thing. But there's a lot to be done, I would say. So I hope during this discussion today, I'll get to some of that.
Asante sana, Charles Misheto, Head SME Banking. Lillian, let me come to you. You are also a founding board member of Tanzania Startup Association. You are looking onto a very pertinent issue that I know you hold at heart, which is the environment, the business environment for startups and early stage businesses. Many startups either end up showing the first year or within the first 5 years. What is it that some of the factors that contribute to this, the fact that they begin, they mushroom, and then within a year, going to the 5th year, they're all gone? So what are some of the challenges that the businesses, early startups and early stage businesses face that really hinder them from thriving to, the enthusiasm that they started with? Karibu.
Asante. So I think the phenomenon you're talking about is a phenomenon that is not necessarily just ascribed to Tanzania, that is more or less global. And when you look at as a startup, I think I wanted you to mention the 4 startups, because there's different things. So whether you have a product that is actually a market fit and you're actually servicing your people, or you start with a passion and it's not necessarily bringing in the monies that you're supposed to bring in. Something that is actually close to my heart, which has been spoken about, and I think I would like to at least stand on that particular element, which is human capital. Human capital from the perspective of talent. I think in the initial presentation, to talk about that, the quality of human resource. Even Jumanne right now really spoke about investing in human capital, because technology, having startups, all of that is great, but at the end of the day, there are humans that actually need to be behind those desks. So then you're coming back to something as simple as the cost of labor, for the proper cost of labor. Ukiongea na startups hapa tukaambiana kwamba ni watu wangapi ambao unawahaya based on ile kabisa kwamba unamlipia NSSF, unamlipia WCF, unamlipia PAYE. Ukija kuangalia uhalisia wa hiyo cost yako na unataka quality talent ambaye atakusaidia kwenda mbele, sio wewe ndio uanze kumfanyia training, inakuwa ni changamoto kidogo. So cost of labor is something that needs to be looked at from that perspective. Because at the end of the day, we're speaking about 100,000 jobs that have been created by startups in Tanzania. Lakini tukija kuifanya breakdown, full-time versus consulting, na ni vitu vidogo vidogo, lakini this is something I think that really, really needs to be looked into. It's something ambayo tunaangaliaga zaidi kwenye financing. Tapata hela, lakini you still need people to sit and do the work. And for a startup to be able to hire good quality talent, it is expensive. Expensive in the sense ya kwamba you want to hire kijana ambaye ametoka ana degree, kumlipa 500,000, 400,000, wakati ya corporate anakuja nampa 1.5. hapo 500,000 yako hujaweka ile ukamwekea pay, ukamwekea NSSF, ukampa all these benefits, na anataka nini, utasema umwepe na health insurance, manele ya NSSF haitaki. So these are things that are practical and on the ground that needs to be looked at. But to answer your question, I think just as a roundup, you know, getting the right type of people to actually help you run. As a startup again, your job is innovating. Usually, mimi kuna kampuni ya kwanza ambayo nilianza, I accrued a lot of NSSF huko ukiangalia kwenye finance na legal. You need support kwenye the finance, the legal, and the human capital, HR, which also a good company. Squeezy company nyingi zikianza zinatafuta support kwenye HR support na kila kitu. So those are opportunities, which comes back to talent. Talent, unaweza kupata hela, unaweza kuwa na idea, lakini idea yako has to really be servicing a need so that utengeneze hela. So watu wakuweza kurun. That's my thing. That's my passion.
Asante sana, Lillian, and we can see that passion from the tone. Jumanne, over to you, and allow me to really pick your brains from the years you've transversed over the innovation space. Kuna kitu kinaitwa startup policy, Jumanne, and we would really wish to know, how have you been able to really navigate the policy, and if you see any relevance that we need this policy, and what should be done about it, other than compliance?
Yeah, so speaking as Jumanne Sahara Ventures, not Jumanne, board member of TSA.
It's on, it's on.
Yeah, because no one can fire me as Sahara Ventures. Yeah, so I think beyond policies, as I told you, policy basically, as much as it's very important, but it's a document. There are some things that has been done by the government, and we are not going to take them for granted. First of all, the biggest investor in the innovation ecosystem at its infant stage was the government. All of the things that was happening, they were around Commission for Science and Technology, Tanzania. And then they evolved, they went to University of Dar es Salaam, whether it's living labs in rural areas, whether it's the work that Human Development Innovation Fund through DFID we are doing together, through the support that we are giving universities. Most of them were coming from the initiatives that were done by the government. Specifically, there are some individual people who are very open-minded in terms of setting up this infrastructure for things to happen. And fast forward now, we are seeing things like the digital sandbox by the central bank. We are seeing the openness of Minister of ICT to collaborate and work with TSA. So a lot has been happened in terms of moving to where we are right now. Kwa hiyo hatu underestimate effort ambazo zimefanyika kufika hapa tulipo. Na hata we are having this conversation right now. I remember back in the early days when we were doing Sahara Sparks for the first time in 2016, the whole room was a bunch of young people with only one old guy above 50 who was Dr. Mshinda, and the second guy came later who was a ambassador of Switzerland to East Africa and Zambia, my mentor and good friend, Ambassador Arthur Matri. So two old guys in the group, in the room of several young people talking about the future of startups and everything in Tanzania. So a lot has happened during that time. In terms of where are we heading with the policy, I know there's a lot of work that is being done by Tanzania Startup Association. I was informed, I texted Pregod this morning, what is the status of the startup policy, because I knew this would be asked. And he said now they're waiting for the launch date. There's a massive commitment from the Minister of ICT through Honorable Nape Nnauye to get this thing done. So we are very grateful for that. So that is where we are. But in terms of the future, we need to be able to future-proof some of these policies and documents that we are putting together. Technology is changing really, really fast. Now we are talking about ChatGPT 4.0, ChatGPT that can literally talk to you and tell you what to do. So basically, how do we create a document that survives those kind of things? It goes beyond pieces of paper. It goes beyond just having documents signed by the minister. It's about putting together the systems and structures that accommodate those changes.
Asante sana Jumanne. Systems and structures that accommodate those changes. This is also in line to, synchronizing the system, synchronizing the space, so that we sail onto the same wavelength. Sharon, allow me to come to you. In Beiju, delighted that you're doing a lot of things. And I'm sure Mr. Mafuru and the team in the house would really appreciate CRDB kwa kazi nzuri wanayoifanya kupitia Imbeju. And now, as the manager for startups development and incubation, I would really wish to know, these incubations mnazozifanya, what type of environment have you created kwa ajili ya hizi startups na early businesses ambazo nyinyi mnaona kama CRDB kweli zinaweza, ili those who do not get the opportunity to now be part of the Imbeju program can also probably see our best or learn the best practices from Imbeju program. Karibu.
Thank you, Austin. Good morning to you all. As Austin introduced me, I am currently the manager for Startups Development and Incubation at CRDB Bank Foundation. As CRDB, we saw the gap that was there from the corporate side, that we should come on board to support the startups in the innovation ecosystem. From the corporate side, where we seek to capacitate the startups and give them, well, from our financial institution perspective, give them the essential skills when it comes to financial literacy, but also connect them with different channels of the departments within the bank, where they can support them with different services that we offer at the bank. So currently we have Imbeju program. Now this is our flagship program that was launched last year, 2023. And Imbeju program has two models. It operates under two models. One is the youth, that is startups, and then the other is for the women only. Now today I'll focus mainly on the youth. The startups that we are targeting are early stage startups with prototype, but at least businesses that have already been launched into the market and have already started generating revenue. So we provide them with capacity building, we link them to different markets, we also provide seed funding. And how do we do this? We conduct trainings leveraging on the expertise that we have at the bank, where we invite different employees or different members of the bank to provide these trainings, but as well as connect also with the experts in the ecosystem. So to answer your question, we leverage on the services of the bank because there's been a lot of accelerator programs out there, but then, you know, most of the times the accelerator programs that are conducted, they do not really target the necessary skills that these startups need. So you might find that startups move from one accelerator to another, and then after that you ask them, like, so what did you get from the other accelerator, you see? And for us, we emphasize mostly on not only funding, because startups might say we need funding, but do you have the necessary skills to grow your business? Do you know how you need to market your business? Do you know how to financially make your business stable so that you can generate revenue? So even as we have enrolled our Imbeju program, we made sure that we take them through step by step on what it takes to grow your business. We also give them business advisory, and as we conduct the due diligence as well, we make sure that we let them see why or what areas are essential for them to grow in terms of if you need funding. And to mention, our Imbeju funding is a revolving grant. It's a repayable grant, which is different from the ones that have been around, which is grant financing. So that is a bit different, and also we have discovered that the startups are a bit new to that. So we take them through, if you need to get this financing, do you have the traction that is needed? Because we cannot just give you the funds and then you eventually just misuse them. So we take them through that whole process of how to utilize the funds, how to manage the businesses, and in the end, connect them within the bank's channels. So currently, we also have startups who we have supported or facilitated partnerships within the bank through different integration, the likes of lipa kwa hapa payments, and so forth. So as we connect them within the bank, they get to grow and then also expand their markets.
Fantastic.
Thank you very much.
Asante Sana. Let's give them a round of applause. Asante Sana. Annette, you're looking onto the policies. You're a policy specialist with UNCDF, the Impact Capital Fund, or Capital for Development. So I would like to really grasp from you innovation, the space that we're looking for startups as well as early businesses in Tanzania. If you ask any startup, of which again also my brother Charles mentioned earlier on, everyone would speak about financing, everyone would speak about capital, and I would really like to pick from you at this juncture to as far as the environment is concerned, to as far as the startup, what it takes. We spoke about innovation, either ministry or innovation space, to grant that room for startups. What are some of the policies that probably need reforms or have undergone reforms? But specifically, I would like you to tackle onto the financing aspect of the startups and early businesses. Karibu.
Thank you. Good morning once again. Thank you for that question. I don't know if I can answer completely, but I think I'll just open up the discussion. As I have been introduced, I'm coming from UNCDF, so it's one of the UN agencies with capital mandate. So we do support startups in the ecosystem, and specifically those who are operating in the financial sector, so the fintech. And for us, we do kind of like different supports. I think some of my panelists have kind of like alluded to some of the acceleration work that is happening in the market and where we are part of. And from that space, we do provide both technical and a bit of catalytic funding. I wouldn't say more financing, but really small grants to keep the lights on and kind of like prepare these startups to be investor ready or to be able to access more of like commercial capital later on from other type of funders in the ecosystem. And in that space, I think we have kind of like also started looking at why, for instance, we don't see a lot of commercial funding coming to Tanzania in comparison to other markets or the big fours in the continent. And one of the exercises that we have been looking at, because we work closely, like I said, with the market, but at the same time with the government, particularly the likes of the central bank, with the regulator of the financial sector and other regulatory bodies. So we started looking at the different policies that are in place that could affect the flow of funding or the financing into the country. And there are a couple of things. So the research is not yet finalized, but we have some initial insights that we are picking up that I think will be relevant to be taken upon for consideration. And just to kickstart, I mean, we looked at our, I think most of you who have been in the innovation ecosystem, you have been hearing these issues around the requirement for funders or to register with FCC. So this is the Fair Competition Commission. And the threshold for Tanzania, as an example, is relatively low when you compare to other countries. So I think for a lot of like external VCs, it seems like you have to go through a lot of hurdles, even if you are bringing small amount of money, because I think the threshold for Tanzania is about 1.5 million, if I'm not mistaken about the numbers. When you look at other countries, it starts from 10 million. So somebody who wants to put in at least even 3 or 4 millions in the country, US dollars, I mean, you start thinking of all these regulatory hurdles that you would have to fulfill. And that sort of like deter the inflows of capital, particularly the venture capital funding. The other element that we are picking up from the market is when companies are accessing external debt, there is a requirement in our laws that they need to register with the central bank. So you need to be able to register before your debt, your credit comes into the country. Again, that also kind of like present certain hurdles for people to be able to access capital. from outside, because the registration itself might take longer, or sometimes somebody receives funds before the registration is completed, and that introduces a number of challenges in relation to that. But this is not to say it's all bad, because we are also seeing from the government side there are some initiatives that are taking place to see how we mobilize capital, even domestically. So I know the Capital Market Authority started looking at crowdfunding regulations. This is a good move to ensure that people can be able to mobilize funding domestically from different people who are looking to sort of like support the startup ecosystem. We are also seeing the emergence of angel investor networks within the country. So some of them are happening organically, some of them are kind of like catalyzed by supporters in the ecosystem. But this is all in an effort to see how do we ensure the different high net worth individuals we have in Tanzania can also contribute to providing financing into our ecosystem. The last element that I would was to touch on, again, from where we stand, we have also been working with the Bank of Tanzania to see the possibility of facilitating flow of remittances and funding from the diaspora community, because we do understand we do have Tanzanians in different parts of the world who would like to support and provide financing that could be directed into some of these innovation ecosystem. So how do we address certain challenges in the policy and regulatory environment that can facilitate inflow of funding from the diaspora and migrants of Tanzania to invest in the country? So thank you.
Asante sana, Annette. Before you pass this, I'm doing my second round of questions starting with you, and thank you so much. I just want you to briefly mention, Tanzania has been, and Joe probably could add up, and probably Mr. Mafuru when you come to give us a quick overview. But we've not been attracting financing to startups and innovations in Tanzania as much as most East African countries have, including Kenya. And I'm going to Mtambalike later on to ask him why. Kenya's done 3 years of Innovation Week, we've done more than 10, but they've gone way ahead of us. So Annette, maybe to begin with you, what do you think that we need to do, be it policy-wise, be it environment-wise, to attract more funding for startups and early businesses in Tanzania? Sure. Briefly, snappy, and then I'm opening the floor after my final round. Karibu.
Okay. Thank you. So I think I started alluding to some of the policy-related issues, but at the same time, also I think there are aspects of the market that we need also to do something, because money would go to places where there is something to attract it. So from the ecosystem itself, I think we are moving in the right direction in terms of like supporting these young innovators or startups that are available, because you want, as an investor, you would want to go and invest in a company that is promising, that is going to give you a return. So probably that was kind of like getting slow in Tanzania, but now I feel like we are in the right space. And we are already starting to see some of these investors coming and looking at the market. I think recently we have seen a number of Tanzanian startups that have been able to raise a sizable amount from outside, the likes of Dawa Mkononi, if any of you have been following the space, or the like of Ramani. So that, I think, is already giving you good signals in terms of like how we could see Tanzania in the next 5 years or whatnot. But I think the other bit, if you allow me, in terms of like what we have been picking up from the study, why from the investor's perspective, Tanzania might be a bit difficult in comparison to other countries. I had mentioned the issue of FCC registration or notification, but also I think the capital controls that we have, in the sense that some investors are a bit worried to bring money into the country, because the exit options are limited. And that kind of like puts them sort of like in a never state in comparison to other markets where they are pretty much free flows of capital.
Asante sana, Annette. Thank you very much. Let me come to you, Sharon, quickly. Imbeju is, again, a fantastic program, and you being the manager for startup development and incubation, I know there's a lot of research behind it, but there's a lot of wisdom and knowledge that is associated with the startup development and incubation. My question is really very simple to you, and this is probably a marketing tool for you, marketing opportunity for you. How then are you able to share those insights, that knowledge, the research findings on how businesses can thrive, startups can thrive in Tanzania, especially to those who do not have access to Imbeju?
Thank you, Austin. Yes, so we aim to share this knowledge or insights to different platforms. First, we conduct different events and we promote startup businesses. We at CRDB do a number of events here and there. So we always want to invite or support these startup businesses to come and participate in these events through different exhibitions, but also we have a way to showcase the work that we do through different platforms, different online sessions that we aim to start doing. And we want startups to be open, like we create a platform for them to speak up, to speak their challenges, to speak the needs that they have. And then one thing I would say is that we started at Imbeju supporting startups, but then I would like to urge on the point Mr. Baraka shared, that partnerships are key, you know, when it comes to supporting startups in this ecosystem. And more and more organizations are coming up supporting startups, but then we need to join hands. How can we best support startups? And then the other is we all need to play our roles, you know? So from our end, we support startups from our banking perspective, but we need to know who is doing what level have they reached, and as the startups come to us, where are they coming from and what stage are they at? Because also when it comes to financing, we've also experienced this challenge where the startups are coming at a level they're at asking for financing. Our fund is a repayable grant, and the traction they have does not really suit the financing that we're going to give. So it needs them to come from a level where they've already been groomed, they've already been told the different ways on how to grow their businesses. Then there we can support them further. So I would like to urge all the stakeholders in the room that financing, startups financing needs us to join forces together, you know, as the ecosystem, totally. And also learn from our neighbors, from what ESOS shared in Kenya.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Sharon. Over to you, my brother, J4, Yumane. I'd mentioned, I'd already hinted, so I'm sure you've had a couple of minutes to just think about, you know, when my brother from Kenya came and spoke about Tanzania celebrating 10 years, ANOS, when we are celebrating 10 years today of the Innovation Week and Innovation Space in Tanzania. They've had 3 years, and yet Innovation Space, and I'm glad you mentioned that you've gone to Kenya many times. So I would like you to really share the experience briefly in a minute of what is it that Kenya is doing differently from us, that they've, you know, started and yet gone very far ahead of us. I do not know how far, but ahead of us.
Yeah, let me try to do an elevator pitch.
A minute, yeah.
Okay, great. So I wrote it in my book. There's a chapter called The Kings, Kenya, Nigeria, Ghana, South Africa, and somehow Egypt. Now they're taking the lead. First of all, you should look at the core strengths of the 4 markets. Egypt is operating in the MENA region. They're trading with both Egypt and Middle East. South Africa, the culture of venture capital has been there for the past 20, 30 years. Kenya basically is expatriate economy. There's a lot of expats in Kenya. If you look at the startups, there's a very famous Medium post that trended in the past few years, like who is a Kenyan founder. You can search that article and then you can see the actual portion of the actual Kenyan founder. I don't know, I don't want to get into that discussion, but is one of the core strengths. If you look at Nigeria, is diaspora community, returnees, founders, guys who have gone to UK and US, coming back home, partnering with the local founders, unlocking capital. People invest in capital I mean, people invest in people who look like them, speak like them, have knowledge like them. So we might want to find our core strengths as a country if we want to unlock capital. Do we want to focus on expatriate? Do we want to focus on diaspora? Do we want to focus on the region? What is our core strength as Tanzania? The other issue is also the local investment landscape. How do we unlock the local investment landscape? If you go to Nairobi right now, wiki moja tunaweza wakutana na VC firms zaidi ya 25, 26. How many VC firms you can meet in a week? That tells you about why not the capital is coming. The other issue, of course, amezungumza hapo Anet, issue ya exit. People are very afraid. I'm putting my money, ila how do I get it back? Mambo yamekaa shagi. Kwa hiyo investors wanaogopa how they're going to get their money back. The other issue, of course, ni issue ya talent. Principle ya kwanza investors, they're investing in a person before a company. So do we have the right talent who can absorb the capital? Can we prepare our young people to be able to absorb the capital? We can be able to compete not just with the kings, but across Africa. The other issue is branding. We speak so much bad about ourselves, and we don't celebrate our heroes. Actually, we are against them. We pull them down. Galia kwenye social media huko, ana hela yule amesema tu lakini ana maona. So it's more of a cultural thing, but it's really, really bad. To an extent, some of our local companies don't disclose when they raise capital. And they tell you actually, some of them, they even written me an email, usiseme kama tumepata hela kutoka kwa investor, we hatutaki matatizo sisi. Umeona? Kwa hiyo, which is funny because if you don't share this number, it's very difficult to see Tanzania is performing. If you go to regional databases of VC, like the big deal, some transactions from Tanzania zimeandikwa undisclosed. Kwa sababu the founders who have attracted those capital, they're not even ready to disclose how much they've raised. So even the numbers that you're seeing like out there might be completely incorrect. Maybe we are performing even far way better, but most of the transactions are undisclosed. Kwa hiyo kuna issue pia ya culture, kuna issue ya branding. It's a more of a chaotic problem that requires systemic intervention.
Baraka, tunaomba uyachukue hayo. Kayasema mengi sana, lakini I believe they all aim at really improving our policies and the environment at large. Nashukuru sana Jumane, you've really poured your heart, and we look forward to your book. Lillian, over to you. Quick one for the next 1 minute. There's a statement that I really like. It says, the future is there for those who prepare for it. Sasa, nataka useme tu kwa kifupi, Lillian, policies, environment. Yeah, is Tanzania really, with the education system and the environment we have, are we really preparing? What Mr. Mafuru had mentioned, looking onto the audience that we have here, that clearly this is the future. Is the future? Are we really futuristic as a country? Human capital, you can mention that. Policies, you can mention. Yeah.
Honestly,
I'll put you on the spot.
Yes, you put me on the spot. I think I would like to talk with the facts. Are we preparing for the future? I would like to believe that we are, but sometimes I think our interventions come in a little bit at a later stage. Currently, right now, we do have SMEs that are looking for talent for specific areas. I think within the last 1 year or so, I've been having requests for coders, developers, etc. And these are coming out of UDOM. Like, that's actually my best place to go get such talent. But because they're not as many, then obviously they are also not willing to go to an SME. They were willing more to go to a corporate, or they're actually preferring to be, because I like to look at human capital. This is the engine of anything and everything. In terms of looking, I think we talk about Tanzania Development Vision 2025. Where do we want to be, the Tanzania in the next 25 years? Which are those sectors that need to be, we need the human capital in? Technically we needed to prepare them then, but right now then we need to put up those interventions. Jumane spoke about the 4 Cs. We are busy trying to deal with going to universities. I'm creating a pipeline because you have Nigeria who is supporting and providing talent in your offices, but at the moment I'm providing them, I am also like, hey, this one, I've tried my best, but they're not at the level that they're supposed to be. So you're now going back to universities, trying to put up basic digital literacy, Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, or at least when you go to that office, you can be able to do a PowerPoint presentation. That is basic. You are starting to help them do basic communication. And when I go back, like if you look at oil and gas, when we look at all of these sectors as a nation that we are actually proceeding, you still are starting to see gaps. do we have all the right talent right now? And I do know there have been interventions, and I'm not taking it away, of training, having sponsorship, of taking graduates to go study abroad so that they come back. But the thing is, when you look at, when now we're needing the people on the ground, we still have not yet have that talent. So interventions are there, but I think with thinking through the next 25 years of where we want to be, we need to do a lot more. Go faster, like our Kenyan brothers and sisters. Thank you.
Asante sana, Lillian, totally. And Charles, Lillian, I'm still contemplating on a lot of wisdom that you've shared, so is everybody else on the panel. But Charles, to finish with you, how do we make startup in Tanzania and early businesses competitive given our existing policies and environment?
Yeah, thank you, Austin. So we have a well-diverse panel, so I'm gonna try and stick to finance, my area of expertise. So I think from the banking sector, financial sector point of view, there are a couple of things we can do better. So initially, when I started, when I shared that some of the things I've done right, but there's a lot that we can do better. And I'll start with, if you look at most, so banks and MNOs, most of us are legacy players. If you look at our tech stack, our tech environment is it needs some upgrading so that it can be startup friendly. So the API framework, yeah, to have this sandbox. And when I say sandbox, I mean the actual sandbox without strings attached to it. So an area where we can create access for the startups to come and test their business models, like proof of concept. I think that's very important. Another thing is to sort of create a more simpler partnership framework. We need to walk the talk. So right now, it takes about average of 9 months to lock a partnership between a bank or MNO and a startup. It's very painful for startups. If you talk to any startup, sometimes they won't even come to a meeting because they know this thing is going to drag forever. So I think banks, MNOs, the entire financial sector, we need to look at it and see how we can make it better. We can make it more simpler for them to lock this partnership and scale. Another thing is collaborate while competing mindset. I think it's time we put aside, move away from these zero-sum strategies that we have. Yes, for instance, banks and MNOs compete, but there are many areas that we can collaborate to especially drive the success of the startup ecosystem in the country. So I think we just have to move away from these short-term myopic strategies and look at the bigger picture, which is to serve the economy. Because let's be honest, the business models that we have now, especially in the banking sector, is not going to be relevant in the next 10 years. In 10 years, you're not going to go and ask SME to give you a piece of paper, historical data for you to finance them. That's not going to happen. We're going to have a whole different new model. So I think we need to change our mindset. And another is this is on leadership again. Thanks for mentioning human capital. So leadership is part of it. I think it's time to sort of have visions. I'm not sure if there's a clinical procedure you can do to instill visions to people, but we need to have the ability to read and interpret micro trends. Yeah. For instance, right now you have startups like Dawa Mkononi. That's possibly the future of healthcare in the economy right now. But do we have leaders that are seeing that? Yeah. We have fintechs that are trying to sort of set up the infrastructure for SMEs to be financial ready. You have a number of platforms that are doing that. But do we have the leadership that sees that? So I think that's very important. But overall is to collaborate while competing so that we can make sure that we support the startup ecosystem. Thank you, Stan.
Asante sana Charles. Nimependa katika vile umesema we collaborate in a competitive mindset. Nimeipenda sana hiyo. I would like now to open the floor quickly. Maybe I'll take 2-3 hands. Nianze na Martin. Martin, karibu. You had your hands up kwanza kabisa kabla sijafungua floor. Karibu. I think it's on. It's not on. Two, 3 hands, and then we'll close up. Ooh, I have 20 hands. We'll only take 2-3 hands. Alafu nitaacha room for networking. Sawa, eh? Number mic hapa.
Thanks, Austin, for putting me on the spot. But yeah, good morning, everyone. My name is Martin Arioba from Arioba Venture. Mine, I don't think it's a question. Maybe I'll rather just put one or two comments. Thanks, Innovation Week team, for organizing this and for your 10th year anniversary. Mine, I'll say, if I have to say one sentence, and piggybacking to what I think Jumanne said, you have to be intentional. We all have to speak in one language. And when I say all, it means policymakers, corporates, accelerators, and startup founders themselves. If our intention is to bring capital to Tanzania, we send a lot of conflicting messages as ecosystem players. I wear different hats. Sometimes with my many Chinese walls, I don't know how I'm conflicted when I wake up in the morning, but when you look at the policy and regulators, policymakers and regulators, yes, and this discussion is about policy. And sometimes we talk as if policy, it stops everything. While what Jumanne said in one of his presentations here, it's a paper. We can have a best policy, but if we don't implement things, it also doesn't make a lot of sense. But the other aspect of policy is we all, policymakers and regulators, they all have to show the same intention. And I'll give an example. Tanzania is the #1 mobile money.
Number one?
Mobile money marketing.
Mobile money marketing, okay.
When mobile money started here, we didn't have policies. The policies came after that. But the regulator had the intention to see mobile money grow in this market.
Okay. But as you wind up? As you wind up?
You might have to give me 2 or 3 more minutes. I'll have a lot to say. But today, when you're talking about startups, there's a lot of regulators in different industries. And you might find one regulator is championing that growth, the other one comes in and just wants to kill it. And so that conflict, it doesn't need new policy, it just needs collaboration from the government and its institutions. For corporates, hands up to Stanbic, the work that Charles Kai is doing to promote in the ecosystem. I know CRDB, we keep people's money, so we can't fully give it away. So I think corporates can learn from this. Start with grants, get to learn more about the ecosystem, get to play more. And not everyone has money to give. Others have expertise. There's a lot of transport and logistics businesses in Tanzania. They can open up their businesses and support some of these startups that are working into ecosystem. For other accelerator ecosystem players, money will always come, whether we can exit or not. Even Nigeria and Kenya are suffering from exits, but money goes. So let's figure out the best way to link these startups, make them local relevant, and also link them to funding outside. The biggest risk that an outside VC will not bring the money here, it's if we are just saying, yeah, you can invest in so and so, but you're not investing your time, and we're not asking for money. Investing your time genuinely to see these startups growing. We can champion and publish reports, and you can do all these other things, but if you're not putting your heart and soul into the growth of that startup, somebody else can't come in. Right. Then obviously taking a bit of risk that local angels are taking. There's a lot of people investing, and they've been investing for the last 15 years, so that work is recognizable. The last part, to the founders, yourself, be serious. Nobody's going to take risk and put their own money in you if you don't show that seriousness. And if you don't dedicate yourself to the growth of the venture that you're building. If it's a lip service, it shows off. That's why Jumanne said, sometimes you see a lot of founders, same founders, for the last 10 years. And you can pitch that to an investor that you've been running a startup for 8 years, and it's still a startup. Something is wrong. Either there's no business case, either you don't dedicate yourself to the growth of that venture. Thank you.
Asante sana. I think something transpired jana as well. Mtu ana pitch kila mwaka, ana pitch too, they don't grow. There's a lady at the back, please. Keep it short and snappy. A lady at the back, yeah.
Okay. Sorry, sir.
This side, sijaona mikono, kwa hiyo ndo maana niko huku zaidi. Woo. I'll take two hands and then Dr. Amy and that gentleman, and then that will be it. Chap, chap.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. I'm Ilham Wema. I'm with Dolphin Professional Services, but for right now, I'm speaking as an innovator. There's a question I've been having since the beginning of this wonderful event. Thank you very much for the event. It's been very informative. But I came initially because of a curiosity. In March of this year, there was a re-announcement of a scheme that has been around for around 2 years now, I believe. It's called the Developing Countries Trading Scheme, or as announced in this March, it's just called the UK scheme for trading, where I don't have all the information because it's been a little bit hard to receive all the information about how there has been reduced tariffs or taxes or something on imports to be able to develop our trade with the UK, I believe, because it's in the name. And my main question will be, how are we, like Mr. Yumane was speaking about helping startups, and everyone has just been around from Launchpad in the first days to everyone here who's trying to develop human capital, but how are we helping the startups, innovators, and entrepreneurs take a hold of this golden opportunity that I've been seeing and been very curious about? How are we helping them just take advantage of something that is here? That's my main reason for actually attending the event. Because of all our wonderful sponsors, I thought it would be a topic of interest and something to be highlighted.
Asante sana.
Thank you very much,
Thank
sir.
you very much. Dr. Emmy? Anyone can react to any of these questions. Other than that, we take a group photo and we go. Yes.
Mine
Dr.
is very brief. I'm just struck by what a speaker said, that Dar es Salaam will be the third largest city. Did you say by 2050? 2030? Okay. Shortly, it will be the third largest city. I think we focus a lot on Nigeria. I think I wanted to just implore us all to be very specific about some of the asks that we have. Every time I hear human capital talent, I ask myself, what is it? Is it co-education? Is it, what is that exact thing? And sometimes it's easy for development partners to throw money, put people in a room and say, tick the boxes, or put money in terms of access to finance. So I think let's be very clear on the ask. Is it leadership skills? Is it soft skills? Is it technical skills? So that we have the right investments in the right place.
Asante sana, Dr. Emmy. And the final question. Chap chap kaka.
Thank you very much. Sir, from Kiko Kiwanga and from Tanzania Hubs Network, which is new for most people here. But on aspect of having centralized space for innovation. So for instance, in Tanzania Hubs Network, we saw also there is a question of, so there is aspect of inclusivity and diversity. And for instance, one of the challenges we have in Tanzania is that most of our resources and support, they are found in these major cities, especially Dar es Salaam and Arusha for this matter. But in the region, and I think this is important based on the kind of innovations that we want to have in our countries. So if they have to solve real problems that we have, because I think at the end or ultimately, innovation is supposed to solve real problems that we have in our country. So we will be focusing on funding, but if funding is coming and is funding solutions that are not actually addressing real problem in our country, it will also be a challenge because they can get funded, but they just die because they're not solving real problems. So I think real problems, we find them all over our country, and innovators from all other places in our country. So I think there should be a strategy on top of having maybe a centralized place for promoting innovations, but we should find a way or infrastructures and enabling environment to support all regions in Tanzania to have this innovation coming out. So this support supposed to go to these regions instead of, for instance, we were talking about Blela at first, it was only in Dar es Salaam. So someone who is want to register a company who is in Rukwa, they have to travel in Dar es Salaam. Right now, it's digitized and they can do it from there. So we should not make the similar problem. I mean, so that will be a challenge if we think like innovation has to be just in a certain place. It's a good idea, but we need also to think of inclusivity and diversity.
And this is where we are going to Tanga next, starting tomorrow. So just know that the government has already taken initiative. Makisat and everything is happening all and across all the peripherals of the country.
That's awesome. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much for all your contributions. Nadani, there's not be any question to my panelists, so please allow me to request them to please stand up as we clap for them for their wonderful contribution. Let's take a group picture, and then I will invite Mr. Mafuru to come and give us his reflection, and Joe Manirakiza for a closeout. Naomba piga picha wetu.
So when I finished talking my opening remarks, I was debating whether I should stay or go. I realized my choice to stay was really a good bet. So I thank God that I was properly guided. I just want us to, but first and foremost, how many Tanzanians are in the room? By show of hands. I just want to be sure I'm talking to the right people first. I'm not being discriminating, but I have a purpose for this question. But can I ask you to stand up? I'm sorry. Can I just ask Tanzanians to stand up? I want to be sure I'm talking to the right people. Okay, that's a good number enough. Please sit down. So can I just ask then, how many of you, and God is watching, have read Tanzania Vision 2025? Just so they have an idea of what it is about. TDV 2025 that comes to the end in the next 2 years. Again, stand up. Be honest. All right? So it's very important, and please sit down, when we really talk about our development agenda and really wanting to become the country we want, to take stock of where we're coming from. I don't know how many of you were here the year 2000. Maybe some of you were born already, like me, and you're already aware of what is around you, right? And perhaps you felt the reality then. The people who wrote Vision 2025 had some inspirations and clearly wanting or viewing Tanzania to be someplace, somewhere. I remember pretty well, I come from the left shores, the shores of Lake Victoria. Back in the days, going back home, we used to go back through Kenya. So you get into a car, a bus, Nairobi, Tarime, Sirari, and then you're back into Musoma, and the same thing. And I'm sure for people from Bukoba, they will go around again through Uganda to that country. Today, you get into a car in Lindi, at the southern part of Tanzania, at 6 a.m. in the morning, and you'll be sure to be in Mwanza by dinner time, if you're driving a good car. So, and that's, back in the days, this used to be a 3 to 4, 5-day trip where people will pack chapati, mandazi, kuku, just so much they know. Before they get to Mwanza, they'll spend some 2 days at a place called Sekenke, you know, and that's when the kukus and the chapatis will be dealt with. It was massive. These are things of the past now. And that is what we call development. The aspiration of President Ben Mkapa, may his soul rest in peace. One of the things that he wanted to see was a learning community that has initiative. It speaks to the people in the room. And this is the point I'm talking about, the initiative. It is the innovation part that you're talking about. A society that is learning but that is innovating. That is what he envisaged for Tanzania 25 years later. I really want us to really think, if Benjamin Mkapa was in the room today, listening to the conversation, would he look back and say, this is what I wanted to see in Tanzanians? If you ask me, somehow, somewhere, we've made some traction, we've made some progress, because we are thinking, we are innovating, and perhaps we can do better than that. So, do we want to sit back here and rant, to borrow Tambalike's words? Not really. We just need to say, it's a glass half fill. We need to fill the remaining part of the glass. If you're so pessimistic, you will focus on the empty part of the glass and say, you know what, this glass is not full. And you ignore completely the half portion that is already filled and totally discount the work that has been done to get that glass up to that level. I think the message I want to give you now is a reflection of the conversation today, this morning, and I'm sure over the last few days that you've been here, is to really take forward all the positives that we've achieved as a country, as a people, and capitalize on them, really avoiding the mistakes we've done. And I want to outline some of the few things that we've pointed out as blockages. It starts with the people. I'm sure I'll get everybody hands up. How many of you knows about Silicon Valley? Silicon Valley? If you have not heard about Silicon Valley and you're in the room, then you're lying to us. You're in the wrong place. Okay? So there's a story I want to say about Silicon Valley. That place has got tech community institutions like many of you. These people have access to capital. Like, we're not struggling. We're struggling for capital here. I hear people talking about startups, money here and there. They are surrounded with capital. Am I lying? They are surrounded with top talent. I hear people using the word talent here. Top talent in the true sense of the word. These are people trained from top schools, top universities, probably hands-on, and they know everything. And they probably have a market. And an American market is the largest market when it comes to technology stuff. So they've got capital, they've got people, and they've got the market. And guess what? Have you ever had, or how many of you have had a company filing for bankruptcy in Silicon Valley? There are companies filing for bankruptcy every single day. There's a company filing for bankruptcy, imefilisika, in Silicon Valley. Now, this is the point I'm trying to make. The difference between a company that files for bankruptcy in Silicon Valley and the one that is successful is the people that are running those. This word talent we're using here, we shouldn't be using it so loosely. I think Tambalike stole my word. When you have shaggy things, vitu vimeka shaggy, I followed that, right? I spent 21 years in banking, running one of the third largest bank in the country, lending money to businesses. I could read one proposal and say this is a shaggy proposal, and read the other and say this is a proposal, before meeting the person. And then when you meet the person, when they start narrating their business model, and when we say, so what is your business model, I see people changing colors. I receive a lot of young guys coming to the Planning Commission. We've got this idea. This is what we can do for Tanzania. Oh, fantastic. So can you please, let's talk about your business model. Business model means how is money spent and how is it created end to end. Talk to me that process. If you cannot explain that process, no one is going to write a check, no matter how small that check is. Because I get confidence when I listen to a person who can articulate what they want to do. But if you've had, Tambalike has an app for 1x something here, and then you steal that idea and you copy paste and you have no depth of what they're doing and you think it's yours and you come to explain looking for venture capital, forget it. So what I'm saying, becoming a talent is about checking several boxes. It's this box of understanding what you want to do and being able to put in front of the person that you're trying to speak to the value. It's about value proposition. I was the MD of NBC, chair of Tanzania Bankers Association, when MNO disruptors, I call them disruptors, came into the banking sector and stole the payment from banking to MNOs. And so I took my colleagues and went to Twin Towers to face the late Ben Ondulu, challenging him to say, so how do you do this? How can you allow these guys? We're building branches, we're selling, we're getting people to bring deposits, and here they come, they just plug and get the deposit. This is not fair. And this is what Professor Ndulu said, and may his soul rest in peace once again. He's my role model, by the way. He said, listen, bankers, find ways of working with MNOs. We are not changing anything. They're here to stay. And he reminded us that there's no regulation, and people are talking about policy this, policy that. MNOs starting doing payments with no payment regulations. I think they got signed 5-7 years later when there's already massive business and they were indispensable already. Nobody could think of stopping MNOs in the payment sector today. Not as a central bank, but not even as government. Today, government collects taxes thanks to MNOs. We pay taxes through that. It's an indispensable reality. It is here to stay. So when you're able to create value proposition, everybody will come around you and the policies will come. So let's not put the policies ahead of our innovation, because that's a stoppage. You will stop thinking because there's no policy. In fact, it is what you're doing that will design the policies. It should be the other way around. So I'm encouraging people in the room to not use this as a scapegoat. Policies should not be. Policies should follow innovations. If we put it the other way around, we're not going to make it. Vision 2025 is coming to an end. We cannot wait another 25 years to become a middle-income country. By the way, we're debating in the Planning Commission whether our next vision should aim to become a middle-income country. We're not sure whether we should aim for that. We think it's a low goal to aim at, right? And you know why? Because the year 2000, when the Vision 2025 was written, we were not at the pace of technological changes as we're seeing today. So we believe, with good use of technology and these all mumbo-jumbles of digital transformation we're talking about here, we should be able to leapfrog our development agenda. And therefore, achieving middle-income status should come in pretty soon than later. And then the target really should be changing to become a high-income country. And that's because we believe technology will help us. But we also think because we have a massive population. There are people who are looking at the Tanzanian population rate at the moment as a disaster, as a problem, as a crisis. Again, human beings are created in two shapes. They're pessimistic human beings and they're optimistic human beings. We want to challenge the pessimistic view of the population of Tanzania and use it as an opportunity. We've got some work to do, though, to convert this number of people that are being born in Tanzania to be productive human beings. And when they're productive human beings, then only we can fast track our growth. But of course, if you're going to have 10 million youth who are not doing anything productive, but doing funny stuff in the streets, of course it's a disaster. But imagine of these 10 million youth who are productive and they can do one thing to add value in the economy, for sure, this massive population is going to be an asset that will pay dividend. And we talk about population dividends every day. So a big number of youth, coupled with good use of technology and innovation in a supportive environment, should really translate Tanzania to become a significant economy, a significant player on the continent. And perhaps, you talked about kings in the book. Maybe we'll be qualifying into a kings pretty soon as we make use of our potentials that we hear. So I just have to leave this place now. I just want to say, as long as we are able to show value to policymakers, and I'm truly happy that Baraka is here because he is currently running with a docket that will really bring all this together. We're very open-minded. I want to remind you once again, let us decide what do we want to see in Tanzania in the next 2 decades or so through the process that we're currently running of writing our Vision 2025. There's a full chapter, 2050, there's a full chapter, and it's not just a paper, it's not just a document. And I really hate, using documents and thinking they will take us forward. This vision that we're talking about should just do a guiding tool that will guide us into the next level of our development. So there's a full chapter in that blueprint that talks about digital transformation and how we can harness that to fast track our growth. And the people in the room should shape that chapter. I want to stop here, and again, thank you for having me.